My story is about my attempt at becoming a real-life G.I. Joe, which ultimately led me to becoming a Golden Girl fan. So growing up in the 80s, I often saw myself on the big screen as those nerdy characters that were in the movies like The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, and Weird Science. I was a lot like those awkward teenage guys. At school, I was called a dweeb, a geek, a nerd, a spaz. I wasn't good at any sports. I usually rode the bench or was the first to quit any team I belonged to because they wouldn't play me or I never thought I was good enough. I even quit the high school band. Who quits the high school band? I did. I wasn't even good at being a band geek. So in the summer of 1988, before my senior year, the conversation between me and my mom happened about my life after high school. She suggested I join the Air Force like my dad, who had joined when he graduated. But I never met him, didn't know anything about him, didn't know what he looked like, didn't know much about him, except that he'd been unfaithful to my mom. And I didn't feel the need to follow in his footsteps. Instead, I decided to join the Army. I told people I joined the military so they would pay for my college education, which was partially true. But what I didn't tell people is that I also joined because I didn't want to be like all those nerdy guys from the movies anymore. I wanted to change how others viewed me. I would become that poster boy that I envisioned myself to be when I saw the recruitment folder. So in order to prove to the world that I was a man's man, I did the most stereotypical, masculine, hardest thing to do and joined the Army. So this is where my story begins of my attempt to become a real-life G.I. Joe. Attention! Sorry, at ease. Now that I have your attention. So on August the 5th, 1988, by way of a Greyhound bus, I arrived at the military entrance processing station in El Paso, Texas. During the grueling interview, they asked, but I didn't tell. I didn't say anything about my attraction to men and women. I was more worried about the Army's rigorous physical fitness test, which I barely passed. But at the end of the day, I raised my right hand to swear and defend the Constitution of the United States. So to prepare for Army life later that year, rather than lifting weights and running as I should have, I watched movies like Full Metal Jacket, Hamburger Hill, and even An Officer and a Gentleman. I did this to learn about the kind of soldier I was going to be expected to be. I was scared shitless after watching those movies. I'd wonder if I'd be physically and mentally tough enough. I arrived in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, almost a year later in a cattle truck around midnight and was immediately bombarded by this yelling and screaming by the drill sergeants. Move it, line up, hurry, hurry. Miles away from home. I was right after high school, right smack in the middle of the night. Now I'm really scared shitless. Because unlike any of the sports teams, where if I wasn't good enough, I could just quit. I was literally stuck here. If I did quit or go AWOL, where was I going to go? Quitting was not going to be an option this time. So typically my mornings began at 5 a.m. to the banging of steel trash cans, lights being turned on, waking up to hurry, hurry, standing at attention, and having my drill sergeant just standing inches from my face scream at me. Where are you from, Private? Texas Drill Sergeant! Private, only two things come from Texas, steers and queers. I don't see any horns on you. You ain't a steer. You must be a fucking queer. No, Drill Sergeant! I can hear you. No, Drill Sergeant! My life was now under total control of these men in authority. And I accept that their job was to make me the best soldier by any means necessary. Oh, and if being yelled at by my male drill sergeants wasn't bad enough in my all-male platoon, we had a female cadet, a bit older than us, from West Point, who also yelled at us. We were told that we must respect her as our male drill sergeants. This cadet was very smart, had this great athletic prowess, and could basically smoke my ass in every aspect of Army life. I didn't see this cadet as trying to shame or humiliate me by her yelling. After all, it was her job to make me a better soldier. But I'll confess, I had a harder time being athletically bested and yelled at by women as compared to men. In retrospect, I see that this was a form of sexism. I was issued an M16 AS assault rifle. Please take a moment to form a mental picture of me and a rifle. Not only did I have a hard time hitting any of the targets at the target practice, also had a hard time meeting other basic training requirements, such as completing the mandatory number of push-ups, sit-ups, and running the required 2 miles. So I ended up being recycled and sent back to basic a second time. Yes, I had to go back and repeat basic training. So call me crazy. But the one thing I wouldn't do was quit. So I joined a new group of recruits, fresh off the bus. A sense of sadness and failure overtook me. But I also had some confidence since I knew what to expect now. I thought the second time would be a cakewalk. Granted, a cakewalk with more yelling. But I did better this time and was on track to finish basic and graduate. I got into the foxhole for the target qualifying exercise, mentally prepared to hit the targets. I'm seeing the targets. I'm hitting them. Then something happens. My glasses are getting foggy. I'm dripping sweat from my forehead. I keep wiping my brow. I miss. Then another miss. My concentration is off. And with that last missed shot, it was over. In a matter of minutes, it was all over. Everything that I had worked for, the getting up early, the yelling, the grueling exercise, my life, the life I had envisioned, was gone. I came out of that foxhole, head down, defeated. I was going to be sent home. That's when I finally cried for the first time as a recruit. When I got back to the barracks, the 3 drill sergeants who were in charge of my platoon actually cried with me when they told me I was going to be sent home. These tall men with their piercing eyes, these huge, muscular, tough men who yelled at me, all the time suddenly broke down and cried in front of me. And they hugged me. I saw for the first time that they weren't just killing machines. They were male human beings with real emotion. I was sent home to Texas from Missouri on a Greyhound bus, like the one I came on. But I was never going to be the same person. Even now, after I tell people I was in the military and tell them this story, I get a lot of friendly banter, such as, So, you were in the Army for what? Summer camp? Or so, what were you, weekend warrior in the Army? I take a lot of ribbing for my short time in the military, but I take it all in stride. I did something most men are afraid to do. I wasn't a tough jock, and I was scared about what I'd go through, but I joined. I'm proud that I tried. I gave it all that I had while I was there. I have no regrets about the time and effort I put in. But while I was in basic training twice, I learned about a different kind of strength. My respect for the drill sergeants increased greatly at that moment when I saw that they were able and willing to cry for me, and that they cared about me and saw me as an actual human being. And I knew it was a form of strength, that I kept trying, that I didn't quit. It takes strength to say, okay, I'll do it again. Many men would have said, I'm done, send me home. I am not doing this again. But that was my inner strength, that I'd do whatever was necessary to try to get to that end point. So for the past 15 years, I've enjoyed another career, working at an organization that provides civil legal assistance to the general public, but most importantly, to our local veterans. In the end, it feels like I came full circle in my life of being service to our local veterans who were willing to give their service to our country. Because of my work, I've been honored to have received many awards, two of them being the Hometown Hero Award and the Pro Bono Coordinator of the Year. That's given by the State Bar of Texas. So today at 49, I can say I'm very secure in my masculinity and my manhood, that I can be enthralled by Miss Vanjie while watching RuPaul's Drag Race, as I drink coffee out of my Golden Girls coffee mug, while wearing my Golden Girls Christmas sweater, and using my Army voice to cheer for my Denver Broncos. I'm fine with who I am now, and can proudly say I enjoy the romantic company of men and women. But most importantly, I'm comfortable now in my own skin. Thanks.